Agatha by Letitia Elizabeth Landon. An ancient chamber in a castle old, the oaken wainscoting is black with age, the tapestry worked with scripture histories has lost its colours, and the books that fill those carved arches show both care and time. And yet the room is cheerful, for the sun looks through the casements, where bright flowers are placed in graceful order, and the cultured plant bears ever witness to a calm delight, shed o'er the hours of such as nurse its bloom. To lean beside the window, one whose brow bears evidence of many a chastened grief, for it is sad but calm, her cheek is pale and touching in its beauty. 'Tis so meek, so kind, with light that suits an angel's face who dreams of heaven. By her side is one younger and exquisitely beautiful, with large blue eyes, the darker for their tears, and with a red rose rain upon her face, paramount as in youth. Agatha Lokitu. Nay, Bertha turned from gazing on the road, which winds amid the lime trees. 'Tis in vain. The last hoof-tramp has perished on the wind 2 hours agone. Now driver dears, dear child, I would not check the natural tenderness, the grief the young and loved at parting feel, but I must blame this utter yielding woe, which feeds upon indulgence, and forgets womanly fortitude and gentleness, making the strength it finds in patient hope. But when the dangers of a red campaign, the very march, the night watch, when the snow drives on a northern wind, my Bertha, yes, all these and more are in thy earnest lot. Yet not the less his life is in God's hand, as much as when he wandered through our vales with thy sweet eyes upon him. Trust in heaven, prayer and submission bring the blessing down. Dear child, I know you saw, for my heart now only beats unto a measured time. Yet once its pulse was agony. I wept tears passionate and vain. Oft have you asked my early history. I tell it now, that it may bring its lessons safe and hope. Show how the heart is schooled by suffering, and how earth's soul may be guided to heaven. You know that I am not a native here. These quiet vales, where security seems like a birthright, and the circling years marked but by the seasons and their change. The green ear ripening into yellow wheat, the opening blossoms and the falling leaves, these are our chronicles of passing time. This was my mother's soil, the Saxon land. She was the very being such a home would form, to gentle beauty, calm and meek, yet steadfast, filled with all harmonious thoughts. Her nature and religion were content which learned submission from its hope, high and holy hope beyond the grave. But I was born beside the winding Rhone, and lived from infancy amid glittering scenes of falsehoods, follies, and appearances. Now kindly influences from solitude, now communings with nature filled the heart with thought and mystery and memories, which childhood doeth unconsciously imbibe, till the mind, strengthened by such intercourse, finds its own power, and doeth rejoice to find. For never was it meant that we should be formed only by the artificial world. We grow where selfish and indifferent, we take up cunning for defence, and deem how foolishly 'tis wisdom. Vanity, too strongly nourished and too early taught, makes every object like a mirror yield some likeness of ourselves. And we but see our own small interests and our weak desires in all around, and we exaggerate our merits and our claims, unsatisfied as the false estimate must ever be, and ends in disappointment. And then comes envy and hate, anger and bitterness, while life, a constant fever, has no joy in nature, all meditation alone. Such was my youth. I lived but for myself. My gentle mother only asked to see a smile upon the face, she laughed so well, and my proud father, in his bold career of war and counsel, had but time to think indulgent was affection. Yet not glad, albeit so glittering, was my hour of youth. It had its vain desires, hopes mortified, its envyings and repinings. I was young and rich, and, I may say so now, was beautiful, and so were many. And to vanity the triumph which it shares is incomplete. Before a year of festival had passed, there came a stranger to our halls. He bore high rank and honor in the emperor's court, from whom he brought a greeting to our king. It doeth not need to paint his lofty step, his falcon eye, he won him many hearts. Such triumphs then were surest road to mine. I loved Count Hermann, passionately loved, and I, methinks, grew better for that love. For early love brings with its gentleness and self-distrust and timid cares. Love feels its own unworthiness, I felt mine, conscious of faults I never dreamed before. Had my affection been less rashly placed, it had been better for my happiness. But Hermann laughed in that frivolity which most destroys our nature's higher part. He woke on me no great and noble thoughts, no generous imaginings. The mind, stirred by the feelings to its inward depths, was a mysterious sea he sounded not. His choice was but a worldly preference, and mutable like other worldly things, it had no soul, and thence no certainty. For constancy is but love's spiritual part. Count Hermann left our court with many vows. How he fulfilled them one short summer taught, which saw him wedded in his native land. Not mid the quiet influences around, the solemn light of evening on the hills, so tranquil in the beauty, can I paint my fierce despair or my impetuous grief. Vexed pride and anger, grief and lingering love mingle together in wild sobs and words. Thank God I have forgotten them. Again my evil nature had the mastery. I thought but of myself, and, worst of all, there rose before me that deep burning shame which I must meet. I could have borne the loss of my false lover's faith, but could not bear to think that others knew his falsehood too. I shrank abashed, and shunned all social life. I thought not of my mother's lonely hours, remembered not the home made desolate by the lost presence of a darling child, but, reckless in my grief as in my love, entered the convent of the Carmelites. I vowed a heart to God that was not God's, and as the veil the novice versed of hide, her face from every eye, so did the veil of proud resentment hide me from myself. How eagerly I entered my new state! How strict was I in its observances! Night brought its vigil, and day brought its fast, till, so the human heart deceives itself, I deemed myself half martyr and half saint, rejoicing in my early holiness. Alas, the novelty wore off. I grew first languid, and then weary, and then turned repining to the world I had resigned. Yet good for me the listless solitude of my low cell. Lonely are serious thoughts, and such mine were. I thought on wasted hours and wasted gifts, with peninsula fear. Day filled with its unsatisfying round of forms and words. How precious grew the night! Then, leaning from my lattice, I could watch the pale stars growing bright in the dim air. Spoke not in their mystery to my inmost soul? Found we not language in my own deep thoughts? When was I humble in my nothingness, an atom in the path of many worlds? When was I hopeful in the scant wheat that, clustering at my casement, filled the cell with its sweet breathings? I could see a power as watchful of the little as the great. The fragile flower was cared for as the star. Yet I had moments of despondency, many and bitter, and remorse awoke as from a dream. At last a summons came. 'Twas for my dying father, and I went. My year's nativity was not past, and knelt for the first time beside the bed of death. How my heart smote me when I saw the cheek of my pale mother. I, her wilful child, how much I might have soothed her, had I shared the patient vigils. Many a weary night had she bent lonely on my father's couch, and now it was too late for me to aid. I wept in agony, I called the saints to witness to the depth of my despair. I vowed wild penances. My grief, still selfish, half forgot my mother's woe. Yet known not all in vain for me her meek and beautiful example. I was touched by the calm sweetness of humility, for sorrow resigned. Yet in my heart there was a struggle. Pride forbade to change, and bade me straight resume the wail and woe. But still the image of my mother, left to solitude and solitary tears, softened me with reproachful tenderness. I longed to throw me at her feet, and say, "Mother, dear mother, take your child again." One evening, 'twas the first we bent our way to that Angustal chapel where the dead of all our race reposed, how many a tear had fallen upon those cold and quiet stones. The tablets to the memories of the tomb were mostly worn with time, but one was there, fresh. 'Twas the bitter work of yesterday. There knelt my mother, but in prayer, not tears, and pale, as with some sad yet solemn thought. At length she rose, and, taking tenderly my hand in hers, said, "Shall we part, my child?" My tears were readier than my words as we sat together in the dim and holy eve. And when my mother told me that her heart had long been opened to the truths divine the German Luther taught, and by that faith had my departed father died in hope, the tie was broken now that bound to France, and she desired to see her native land, own the true creed, and die. My Agatha, she said in her own sweet peculiar tone, read you the pages which I offer now, and then decide. I kissed the silver clasp of a small Bible. Bertha, from that hour it has to me been as a bosom friend. We sought this castle, and our pilgrimage brought its own blessings. Years have passed away in our most dear home circle, and we trace, each day succeeding, an accustomed round of duties, pleasures, charities, and cares which make their own delight. My mother's age, how beautiful it is! Such deep repose, solemn as if a shadow of a grave were resting on it, yet rejoicing to stay, for my sake and for yours, her orphan charge. Though faint the pilgrim, yet the heart is strong. Bertha, my soul, though contrite and subdued, is stirred with thankfulness and love to God. E'en as the whale reflects the sunshine bright with golden light, and as the lake gives back the bright blue sky unbroken by a cloud, as outward earth mirrors the outward heaven, so doth the soul return with spiritual light, even from the shadow of the inward world. Many things trouble, many things destroy the image God has stamped on every mind. Sorrows and strife and passions our it pass in feverish yet dark obscurity. And when we struggle vainly, unless faith with tears and prayers creates holy calm, and only in such mood may we hope peace. But Bertha, see the light leaves of the lime are trembling, heavy with the darkness flung by twilight. 'Tis the hour my mother loves to pace the terrace. She will need the aid of your young arm. I would not trust such charge to any but our Bertha.